Congratulations, Kim, and I know her family is here tonight, and I had a chance to chat with them and know how proud they are. It caused me to remind them, and I'll remind everybody, that even though they have one daughter that wasn't able to be here tonight for Kim's award, we are videotaping this event, as you see, so you'll be able to catch that, and all the friends and family, or if they have if you want to hold David to a particular point after listening to the governor, you'll be able to go back and see that live and hit that replay button. It is time to introduce the speakers that you've come to talk to, and I have the opportunity to introduce somebody that all of you see his work every week, every day, but you don't often necessarily get to see him behind a podium. He's more comfortable behind a keyboard. And we have talked him into moderating tonight's panel discussion. So let me introduce someone that we're extremely proud to have associated with the Business Record, our editor, Jim Pollock.
Thank you. I'm glad to see you all here. I think you made an excellent decision showing up here tonight because we're very happy to have these two speakers for you. These are guys with unique and in-depth perspectives on the economy, two different angles that they're going to share with you. And we'll hear them one at a time. And then when they're done, we're going to leave a little time for questions. I encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity. And so, leading off, David Vaught is an Iowa native who has been the auditor of the state of Iowa since January of 2003. He was reelected in 2006, and this year he is looking for votes again to return to the office. And before he entered state government, he was an accountant and partner at KPMG for 25 years. So throughout his career, Dave has lived by the motto, "In God we trust, everyone else we audit." Way back in 2004, 6 years ago, Dave was quoted as saying, "Iowa lawmakers are ignoring big debts they've accumulated in recent years, postponing the painful decisions needed to get the state out of a growing financial mess." He continued to issue warnings like that, and now here we are, 2010, facing a very difficult budget situation. So let's hear his thoughts about that. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome David Vaught.
It's a pleasure to be here with you. It's a good thing. Bob and I were talking earlier about the presentations, and Bob said, "Well, you can go ahead and go first." And I said, "Well, good, I can give them some of the bad news, and then hopefully he can give you some better news as he looks forward." But it's a pleasure to be here with you. Today what I want to do is walk you through just a few things about Iowa's general fund budget. And I'm going to start by giving you first a historical perspective, what Iowa's general fund budget looks like and some of the things that we've been doing. That will help set the stage as I walk you through some numbers on the fiscal year 2010 budget that we're in currently. And then I'll even give you a glimpse of what the fiscal year 2011 budget looks like and some of the challenges that we're going to be facing. But first off, I always get excited when I get in front of an audience because once you introduce a CPA, an accountant to the group, everybody moves to the edge of their chairs in excitement because we know CPAs have such great personalities and the ability to talk about numbers in exciting ways. You can just see it. So I know at least a few of you probably have this image in your mind. Oh no, here goes that accountant. He's going to do it to us. Promise I won't do that to you. But I will give you a flavor of what Iowa's finances look like, and I'm going to try and do that in a clear and understandable way. Over the last several years, I've been talking a lot about Iowa's problems. And some of the things that I see in our poor budgeting practices include the lack of clarity, the unsustainable spending growth, and then also the spending gaps that we've created. And I'm going to present you some slides that will help demonstrate some of the problems I've been warning our elected officials about. But before we start, I think it's nice to just step back and take a look at some historical numbers about Iowa over a longer period of time. This chart shows you activity from 1980 to current time. So the first thing I want you to notice is that light blue triangle line that goes pretty much across the top of the chart. You'll notice that is on the right-hand side, Iowa's population, about 3 million people. So from 1980 to today, the number of citizens that we're serving here in Iowa really hasn't changed. The next line to notice is the blue diamond line, starts there at the bottom graph, has just a nice steady increase. That is 1980 general fund expenditures adjusted for inflation. So if our spending was only going up to the tune of inflation, that's where we'd be at in the more recent years. Next one to notice is the red box line. And notice that starts at the bottom of the graph and goes all the way to the top of the graph. That's Iowa's true total spending for general fund services, the true total cost of providing services to Iowans. And the last one to note is the green circle line. That's Iowa's revenue stream. Two things you will quickly notice in this chart. Wherever that green circle line goes, the revenue line goes, spending goes right with it because that's government habit. Whatever you have, you spend. What I think is really interesting, if you look from 1980 to the mid-1990s, look how closely that blue diamond line, inflation-adjusted costs from 1980, stayed with the red box line, true total cost. Stayed very much in tune, is what you would expect because generally your revenues are only going to grow to the tune of inflation too, unless you change the structure of those. So we've really found some interesting examples because we lost control over inflation-adjusted costs. Now you've all heard and seen things about Iowa's general fund budget, but what you have to know is you haven't been told the complete story. And this chart will help demonstrate that. If you take a look at that first column of numbers, reported expenditures, that is Iowa's general fund budget. So whatever you hear or see through the media, that is the set of numbers that they're talking about. But think of that first column as being your checking account, and you don't have enough money in your checking account for everything that you need and want. So if you take a look at that second column of numbers, all those expenditures shifted, those are all the costs, general fund services costs, that we have shifted to and paid for with other funds and special accounts. So think of that second column as being your charge card. Now we all know it doesn't matter if you pay for it with a check or if you pay for it with plastic, it's still an operating cost, and that's what I've reflected over on the right-hand column. That's what the true total cost of providing general fund services has been. Main thing to note from this chart, there's another 6 to 10% of general fund services costs that no one's talking about because we're only talking about our checking account costs, and that really distorts the numbers when people are talking about what's taking place. The other thing that creates is confusion. That's why you hear people talking about, did spending go up 5%? Did they go up 10%? Depends on which column of numbers they're talking about. It really distorts activity. When you step back and look at today's financial situation that we're facing, one of the things you have to look at is what's happened over the last couple of years. This chart shows you in the original budgets adopted for 2008 and 2009, top half of that chart shows you revenue was budgeted to grow 9.8% in a 2-year period. So about 5% annual revenue growth. Very good revenue growth. The problem is, in that same 2-year period, you will see that spending was budgeted to grow 15.3%. So in other words, somehow our elected officials think for every dollar of revenue that's new, you can somehow spend $1.50. You don't have to be an accountant or a CPA to figure out that's a disaster in the making, but that's exactly what we've been doing over the last couple of years. What has that created? It's created a real spending gap, the other issue that I have. And what that means is our ongoing revenues that are coming in the door, the money that we collect, is less than the money that we're spending and pushing out the door. And it's created a real budget gap. You'll notice there in fiscal year 2007, the first blue column is the revenue line, the red column is the expenditure line. You'll see we had a small gap, about $50 million that we were spending more than what our ongoing revenue stream was. But look at what happens in the next 3 years. It increases that gap to $440 million, then it goes to $610 million, and then it goes to $690 million spending gap. Huge increase in our spending gap. The other thing you'll notice, if you look at that red bar and how it goes up and comes down, it creates a real unlevel of service for Iowans to depend upon because we're increasing it, then we're decreasing it. And the worst thing is we're decreasing it at a time when the demand for services is the greatest. If you take those spending gaps and put it in terms of a dollar, this is what it looks like. If you look back at fiscal year 2007, the green bar represents ongoing revenue that supports our spending. So back in 2007, for every dollar that we spent, 99 cents was supported by an ongoing revenue stream. Only 1 penny came from other one-time funds. But you look just 3 years later, when we had the original fiscal year 2010 budget, and you'll see that only 87 cents of every dollar that we're spending is actually supported by an ongoing revenue stream. 13 cents is coming from one-time and other-time funds. In this case, 8 cents from the federal stimulus package and 5 cents from other